Brian Canham from Pseudo Echo. Welcome to Newcastle Live. Now, you guys are heading for a show at Belmont 16s on Friday, the 31st of October, to celebrate the 40th anniversary of Love and Adventure. What a great album that was. Does it feel like 40 years?
Yeah, it sort of does, yes. I was 20 or so when we did that album, and I guess, I didn't really think so far ahead. I just did what I did, and I kept doing it, and I'm still doing it. So it just passes, and you don't realize until one day you look back and there's 40 years.
Yeah, 40 years. How's the tour been going so far?
Oh, fantastic. The audiences are great. They're there to party and reminisce, and we're loving doing it. So, yeah, it's great.
Now, the story goes that way back then, that Countdown's Molly Meldrum saw you guys at a gig and was so impressed, he actually got you guys on Countdown with a demo of Listening. Is that the story? Is that true?
Yeah, that's pretty much right on. There was a mutual friend that knew Molly, and they worded him up about the band and gave him a demo or something. And then next thing, he came to a show, which was kind of unannounced. He didn't tell us he was coming. He just rolled up. And I think he was really impressed. He came back and introduced himself after the show. And within a couple of days, we got a call with an invitation to say that they wanted to do this little segment on Countdown. So, we were stoked, and we didn't really have any recording. We weren't signed to anyone. So we, quickly got in the studio and did a more polished demo that we would perform to. And the ABC were fantastic. They built a set for us and scripted out a little story and had all this, ideas that we're going to run by. And Molly gave us a great rap and introduced us to the country, really, into the world, really.
So what was it like for you? Were you sort of wandering around Melbourne anonymously one day, and then the next you were getting mobbed in the street? Is that what happened?
Pretty much.
Do you remember doing your shopping and all of a sudden there's a horde of girls chasing you down the aisle? Or?
Yeah, I had one incident where I was hell-bent on making sure my circle knew that it hadn't gone to my head and that I was just so down to earth. And I caught up with an old schoolmate, and he worked in the Greensboro Plaza out in the northern suburbs. And he said, meet me for coffee and we'll catch up. It'd be great to see you. And so I went there, and he came out out of his store, and we're just standing in the kind of foyer area of the shopping centre. And as we were chatting away, we were talking about where we're going to go and have a coffee. And as we were saying this, we noticed that there was sort of like a bunch of girls starting to gather, and then more and more. And before you knew it, there was like a crazy mob of young teenage girls screaming, to which I had to say, sorry, been great seeing you, maybe I better go. And then the next thing, I'm running out of the store, getting chased like a Beatles cartoon.
Rock star.
So the impression didn't go as planned.
So Love and Adventure was a pretty big album for you guys. Especially after the success of Autumnal Park. You had 4 singles from it, but it seems to hint, and you mentioned before that, Pseudo Echo has been evolving the whole time. That album seemed to hint at that evolution. Living in a Dream, for example, much rockier and guitar-driven sound than, say, Listening or A Beat for You. Was that something deliberate? And what led you there?
Well, the funny thing is that song predates Pseudo Echo. It was one of the very early songs that I'd written, and I think we thought it was too rocky for Autumnal Park. It didn't quite match. And then when we paired up with an American producer for the second album, for Love and Adventure album, he was pushing a bit more that way. But that album is quite diverse, as you would know. There's a really broad spectrum on that album of sonics and grooves and everything. So when he said, look, we could do with a rock song, something a bit more upbeat, I grabbed that song and I said, how about this? And it was unanimous. Everyone loved it and said, yeah, it's great. It's the way to go. So it was nice to sort of, dust off the dust off that old track and bring it back into Suits. And it's very fitting. It was almost like bridging the gap of where we went then to the Funky Town single.
Yeah, it was, exactly. And it seems to be that you were a keyboard based guy, and then all of a sudden you're a guitar guy. Or not all of a sudden, actually. It did
Yeah.
evolve.
Yeah, because I was a guitarist in the 70s, and that was my thing. I was, practicing, emulating Jimi Hendrix and Eddie Van Halen and what have you. And then when Suds happened, I could see that the guitar kind of took a left move, and the synths became the big thing. So I embraced that, and then really wholeheartedly with synths and those sounds. But when the cue for guitar came back, well, I was in my element. It was like, okay, I know this place. So I just took to it.
Is that your preference, guitar?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Yep. Now, a friend of mine, I told him I was going to be interviewing you, and he said, you've got to ask him this. He's heard a rumor that you went to the States and you did some work with Steve Vai to lift your guitar game. Is that true?
What a great story.
No.
Okay, yeah, Steve and I, we go away. No, I've never heard that one. That's a good one.
Okay.
I mean, I play a Steve Vai Pia, my guitar that I have now, but maybe there's some connection that triggered that. I don't know.
Yeah, well, he's heard the rumor and he wanted me to ask.
A great rumor.
I've asked. Now, you mentioned Funky Town. How did that come about? Doing lip sync?
Yeah, look, when I was 18 and I was starting to go to nightclubs, I used to go to the Croxton Park Hotel, the northern suburbs of Melbourne. Molly used to DJ there.
All right.
And the reason I used to go there is because he played good music. He was always on the edge. He was always playing the latest thing that, radio may not have copped onto yet. And that was good because I was starting my band then, and I needed influence and inspiration. So I can remember hearing that song when he first played it, the original. And it stuck in my mind. And then fast forward several years, I've signed a record deal. I'm up to album number 2. We were touring the Love and Adventure album. Funky Town wasn't on that album initially. It was just a 10-track album. And we were halfway through the tour, and I caught up with an old friend who was a DJ. And over coffee, he played me the original lip sync, Funky Town, just for love. And I remember hearing it and just thinking, God, it's such a great track. And I loved the bass in it. I loved the little guitar strum, the one and only bit of guitar in it. And, simple arrangement. Anyway, next sound check I'm doing during the tour, Love and Adventure tour, I started noodling that song. And the boys sort of remembered it too. And we all started talking about it, reminiscing. And then we just started playing it. And we said, hey, why don't we throw it in the encore tonight? That'll surprise everybody. And we did, and it brought the house down. We couldn't believe the reaction was so positive. We had such fun playing it. So we put it in the set every night as the encore on the Love and Adventure tour. And word got out, and everyone was talking about it. I bumped into Lee Simon one day, and he was the program manager at Triple M then. And Lee had said to me, you got to release that song. It's a killer. And I didn't even know that he was talking about Funky Town. So once we established what he was talking about, we had a bit of a chat, and I said, okay, let me, it's a great idea. And I ran it by management and label, and it was mixed results because they just said, look, disco's dead, and, I don't know if we want to go back there. But then when they heard even the rough demo, they were starting to come around. So I just said, look, let me take the helm. I'll be the producer. I'll take the band in. I've got all the ideas in my head. Let's give me a go. Give me a day in court, and I'll see what we come up with. So once we recorded it, it was unanimous. Everybody wanted to go with it. They were all on board, and it just bolted out the gate. It was an instant hit, and it snowballed right around the world. So moving forward again, we realized it wasn't on an album. It was just a single, an orphan. And so we quickly, EMI said, let's repackage the album and put it on so it's like track 11.
Yeah, well, you talk about, guitar, and there was only a little bit of guitar in the original version, but just power chords that you do in your version, like that's what really lifts the song. It really does.
Yeah, I think sometimes if you're going to do a cover, you've got to really find your own version. You've got to find your way. And probably because I didn't listen to the original in great detail when I redid it, I just went, it's something like this. And then I just, filled it out and played it the way I wanted to play it. And I was, at that time also, I was listening to things like ZZ Top and Van Halen because they were all having a renaissance on the charts again, and it was amazing. I'm thinking, these 70s bands are coming back and listen to the guitar playing, and, Steve Stevens was ripping it up with Billy Idol. And so I was in my element. I was just kind of mimicking what those guys were doing.
I'd love doing that song every night, like just to play those power chords and just The
It's a
crowds
lot of
must
fun.
still go off.
Yeah, it's a real fun track.
Now, for those that haven't seen you since the early days, you've got some new members and it's a new show. So how would you say the band's live performance these days is different from then? And what can we look forward to at Belmont 16s?
It's much more of a show these days. It used to just be 4 guys on stage playing songs. We'd stop and scratch our head and have a bit of a chat, and it was very unorganized. It was just we just played the songs. The band was pretty good back then, so it worked. But I think that times have changed, and the show is a big part of it now. So there's a lot of stuff that just goes like clockwork with the show now. 6-piece, it's a bigger look, bigger sound. A couple of girls in the band these days. Andy Krukoska on guitar, she's shredding, and she's a great performer. And then Valentina Taylor on backing vocals, amazing. Great dancer as well. So it's moved forward greatly, just visually as well as sonically. We still do the same songs the same way. They are just injected a bit more energy in there.
Yeah, really looking forward to it. Now, for the guitar nerds out there, what's your rig on tour?
Oh, my rig, it's sacrilege, really. I should have a proper rig, but these days, with a lot of traveling in and out of planes and cars, it's I use an old Line 6 HDX 500, HD 500X pod guitar thing, just a sim. So I have a few vintage model cabinet sounds and things like that, but it's pretty basic. I have a big driven sound, and then a really big driven sound, and then a clean sound. That's pretty much it for me now.
And what guitar?
My main baby is the Ibanez Pia, the Steve Vai guitar, which is a beautiful guitar, very blingy. That was my main thing I was drawn to, but then it sounds fantastic. It's great pickups and nice action, beautiful neck. And then I have a little dinky as a backup, a nice Barbie pink dinky that sits in the wings. And occasionally I just dust it off and then give it a blast for a joke. And anyway, it's not a bad guitar.
Well, maybe that's where the Steve Vai rumor came from.
Yeah, I'm thinking it's either Steve Vai. There could have been a mix-up with Steve Lukather too, because there is a tie there. If I give you some trivial stuff here. Okay. When we were doing the Love and Adventure album, the producer we worked with, Mark Espery, who was a real cowboy, he had done some work with Toto. He dabbled in doing remixes and things like that, and had a lot of samples. They'd often, producers would swipe the samples of the bands they worked with and take them with them, and they'd become part of their inventory. And as I was listening through his samples, which would be on tape, mind you just run a reel and listen, I had these amazing big guitar power chords. I said, "What is this?" And he said, "That's from the soundtrack of Dune. That's Steve Lukather playing that from Toto." I said, "Wow." I said, "I want to put that in our song." And so when we were doing Living in a Dream, I've got this great power chord sound and those big riffs. But when the chorus comes in, I wanted it to go really bigger. And I grabbed that sample, a big, massive power chord from Steve Lukather. I shoved it into a digital sampling machine, tuned it to the chord I needed, and then just triggered it in on those chords. And so there's a bit of Toto in there. So maybe that's where the Steve and guitar came from.
All the rumors. Do we expect another album from Pseudo Echo in the near future?
Look, I've chuffed out a couple over the years that are mixed bags of directions and things like that, where I've been exploring things that I've always wanted to do. I'm currently working on the Machine Remixes album, and that there's some sort of pumped up steroid versions of the originals. They're still kind of in a pop format, but also a bit of an EDM format. And they got a bit of guitar in there, and they're unusual, I guess. I sort of hark back to the synthwave thing, that is synthwave being a regurgitated version of what we were doing in the 80s. Well, and I'm listening to that again now and going, well, I might take a bit of that for me now and put that in where we are. So, yeah, this is something we're just exploring, another sound as for a release.
Yeah, well, I hope Pseudo Echo keeps evolving, Brian, and I thank you for taking your time out for Newcastle Live today, and look forward to seeing you at Belmont 16s on the 31st.
Thank you. It'd be great. Cheers.
Brian, thanks.